A new KPMG survey finds that more than 70% of Black Canadians experience racism or microaggressions at work. Terry Sai Madambi, who co-leads KPMG's Black Professionals Network, says it's not enough for companies to set diversity targets. She cautions that they must also listen to their racialized employees rather than simply check boxes. The survey says more than 3/4 of Black Canadian workers say their company needs a major culture change to become more equitable. Well, joining us now to give us more insight into these findings is Ms. Tamika Mitchell, co-lead of KPMG's Black Professionals Network. Ms. Mitchell, welcome to Forum Daily.
Thanks very much, Nima. Happy to be here.
So can you walk us through how this survey was conducted and what led to this research?
So this research came about because we felt a desire to set a bit of a benchmark after we saw the groundswell support from corporations that made a lot of promises and dedications to the Black community in the summer of 2020. We at the firm said, okay, we want to make sure that there's measurable, sustained change, but how do we do that? And that's best to do that with race-based data. At the time, there wasn't a lot of race-based data in that area. So we decided to conduct our first survey in 2021.
All right, Ms. Mitchell, well, looking at these numbers here, more than 70% of Black Canadians say they experience racism or microaggressions at work. Now, that is a huge number. So what were found to be the major causes behind this high percentage?
Yeah. So there are many causes behind it, Nima, but I'll focus on two. So the first, I would say, is we're now in a post-COVID era. We've returned back into the office and we've increased human interaction. But with increased human interaction come increased microaggressions and racist incidents. So I think that's led to, or that's one of the main reasons why we see an increase in instances of microaggressions and racism. I think the second reason as well is just awareness and education. So Black people around the world have been experiencing a thing that they haven't had a name for all of this time. Now, with increased awareness about what a microaggression is or what racism might look like in the workplace, we have a name for this thing that we're experiencing, so we can more easily call it out, which I think it has led to an increase in the numbers.
And on that note, about what it looks like, for some deeper perspective, what have you heard from Black Canadians when it comes to experiencing this sort of racism or microaggressions at work? What does this look like for them?
So microaggressions at work can look like someone touching my hair without my consent. It can look like being called aggressive or confrontational for asking a question or looking for clarification on simple topics. It can look like being passed over for opportunities or promotions because you're not the right fit. So in Canada, I think there's obviously the overt types of racism, right? The name calling, the threats of violence against Black bodies, but there's also that kind of insidious, kind of ingrained into the system type racism that shows up in our systemic and societal norms. If you can imagine a red wine stain on a white carpet, as ingrained as that red wine stain is in that carpet is the racism in this country. And just the same way you'd have to use a lot of elbow grease to get it out is the same type of zeal and energy that we need to exercise in order to get rid of that racism that's staining our beautiful white carpet.
Definitely, Ms. Mitchell. Just about a minute left here. So let's talk about
Yeah.
solutions. What are some of the recommendations from KPMG in terms of addressing this major issue here?
So I think the recommendations come greatly or best from the respondents of the survey. More representation in leadership roles. When you look up at the C-suite, we got to see more diverse faces representing corporations because diverse experiences lead to diverse thought, which in turn will lead to increase in diverse bottom line, if you'd like. The second is making sure that you establish employee resource groups that are focused on historically disadvantaged groups, so like the Black community, but not only establish them, but also engage them. Listen to the experiences of the people who comprise these groups and work with them to figure out where those instances of systemic barriers exist in your corporations so that you can dismantle them and make the place a more equitable place for all. For all. I think the third and most important point that I wanted to stress also is making sure that you've got specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely goals tied to the hiring, promotion, and retention of Black professionals and others from historically disadvantaged groups, right? Only when you have those SMART goals tied to accountability measures does that change actually kind of take hold for a more equitable future.
Clearly, a lot of work still needs to be done. We're looking forward to monitoring this
Yeah.
progress. Ms. Mitchell, again, thank you so much for your time today.